And good evening and welcome to Tuesday, Crestwood High School, the Crestwood School District Board of Education special meeting. This is Tuesday, June 29th, 2021. This meeting is being called to order by myself and a time of 5:14, so we'll say 5:14. And Madam Secretary, if you wouldn't mind taking roll.
Mrs. Berry?
Yes.
Mrs. Elzayat?
Here.
Ms. Fawaz?
Here.
Mr. Garcia?
Here.
Myself, Ms. Kaminsky?
Here.
Mr. Saba?
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. And the purpose of this meeting is for discussion regarding the flooding that has taken place at Crestwood High School. This was an incident that occurred on the evening of the 25th and went into the 26th of this month. And we are going to have some dialogue regarding where we are and where we plan on going. And a lot of the information will be coming from our CFO as well as the Director of Maintenance. So our CFO, Penny Morgan, and our Director of Maintenance, Scott Jacobs. Do we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance? I just saw that on the...
It is on
All
our...
right, so with that, I will ask for... Everyone please stand. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Madam Secretary, if you wouldn't mind the consent agenda.
Board of Education approval is recommended for the items listed on the consent agenda, which include the June 29th, 2021 board agenda.
Support.
So we have a motion from our secretary, supported by Nadia, that the Board of Education approval is recommended for the items listed on the consent agenda, which include the June 29th, 2021 board agenda. Should that be special board agenda, Kristen? Listed as special board since it's a special meeting, or just board agendas suffices? Well, because it does say titled as special, and here is just board agenda. I just want to make sure it's correct for the minutes. All right. Yes.
Mr. Chair, would this consent agenda be from the last meeting we had, or is it from this meeting?
Today's the 29th.
Right, but usually aren't consent agendas from previous?
There wasn't.
The minutes are, but this is the agenda for
Okay.
today.
I'm not approving previous minutes, we're just approving this.
So with that, would there be any question just adding the word special since it is a special meeting?
Mhm.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, with that motion, all those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the ayes have it. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Penny, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so on the 26th, we were notified by the alarm company that there was flooding in the high school building. The alarm went off. Jim, our maintenance man, went over and went through the building. Then he called Mr. Jacobs, who then went and saw the building. Now, the flooding was extensive. It did go up about 4 feet into the boiler room, so half of the boilers were underwater. It also, if you know the back loading dock, coming out the door, it went up about 6 to 12 inches on the wall, which then covered the drop off from the loading dock. So if you would have walked out the back, you can't see where the loading dock drops. So if you would have walked through the water, he would have went swimming. So he stayed inside the building until it receded some. Throughout the building in the classrooms, there was probably 1 to 2 inches when I got there at 8 o'clock, but there was probably about 3 to 4 inches throughout the building in the majority of the rooms and the hallways. That we began, once this water started receding, before I got there, Mr. Jacobs contacted Midpoint, and they started mitigating the water along with the maintenance crew that was there on Saturday. So we were able to remove a lot of the water. I say a lot, but there was a lot. We were able to remove some of the water on Saturday. We continued that through the day on Sunday as well. The electricians came out on Sunday to see, but because everything was so wet, they were unable to do a lot with the electrical at that time. So they came back on Monday and started putting the power up on Monday. We're at about 85% power. There is still some power lacking at the high school due to the condensation underneath the pool area. The conduit is still wet and there's a lot of moisture in the air. So the electricians are trying to get that dried out so that when we flip the switch, it doesn't pop the breakers. Correct so far?
Quick question. So was there water down in the tunnels of the
Yes.
pool too?
Yes,
That was
Wow.
yes.
That's where all the, oh, wow, okay.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm thinking just boiler
Approximately,
room, okay.
approximately 85 to 90% of the school had water damage or water in the building.
Okay, thank you.
So all the tunnels underneath the building and any of the low spots were then covered with
Saturated.
water. Exactly. The auditorium, the pit, orchestra pit, was full of water. So underneath the stage was full of water. So we haven't gotten to that yet because of the buckling and things like that. So we're working on getting that out as well. So Midpoint has been there for the past, what day are we on? 4 days, getting the water out. They will be putting in heaters, a big giant heater. It's really a semi-truck with attached to that they'll be blowing in heat for the next 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and shut that off on Tuesday. And that's going to pump in heat 115 degrees roughly throughout the whole building and dry up all the condensation and everything in areas that fans or different things cannot reach.
And Midpoint is the restoration company.
Correct, that we must use through the insurance company. Because it's an insurance claim, all of the things go through the insurance company. We help when we can. However, the majority of the work has to be done by the insurance company's people, because if for whatever reason something happens, and let's say Scott's team did something with the electrical, and then the electricians cannot say, well, we didn't do it, and something happens, then that could be nullify the insurance claim.
Okay.
So all of the work has to be done by the insurance people. We can help in certain areas, but to the extent that they actually have to go through and improve all the work.
Okay.
so Mr.
So,
Chair.
and another quick question. So that water was also in the gymnasium with the wooden floors and
initially no, the following day, yes.
that's, okay. Wow.
It's bad.
Nadia?
So I guess my question is, the gymnasium floor is damaged? We just replaced that, right? Okay, the pit is buckled. How much carpet how's the carpet in the auditorium?
It's really the carpet, and there's not much carpeting anymore. It's just the
Okay.
aisleways, and that wasn't affected. It was, the water had infiltrated the west side of the building, flowed across the stage and fell into the orchestra pit.
So where else is there
It did not
carpet?
make its way up the auditorium. It
Where-
stayed at the pit.
Oh, okay.
There are some rooms with carpeting, and those carpets will be either replaced with tile, or if that's necessary to have carpet, like in the library, there was a small section of the library that was wet, so if they can't dry that out, then, which I think it wasn't that big, if I'm not mistaken, in the library, it was not a big section that was full, so that part probably would be dried and not need to be replaced, but if they have to replace it, our goal is to replace the carpet with tile unless it's in a room that absolutely needs the carpet.
Okay, one more question.
Oh, okay, I'll get to you soon.
Do you want-
Go ahead. Nope.
So the big question here is those boilers.
Yes,
Those were just replaced with
Yes.
bond money, correct?
yes.
What will happen if they are not, you're saying, in your report, you stated that they need to be replaced. So, how hard is it to get these boilers? What are we looking at time-wise? I know that the insurance company has to come in, but with our situation, wanting to start school on time, I mean, we know what these kids have been through, what the
Correct.
students have been through and the families. My biggest concern is making sure that the buildings are ready for them. And that's huge for me.
Agreed.
So-
It's really hard to estimate at this time. The HVAC individuals were out yesterday, so they need to turn in the information to the insurance company and get it ordered and find out what that wait time is. So they have to price out the units and replace, because what they'll do is replace our units with exactly what we have or the upgraded version of it. And so they have to get the wait time. And so we don't have that right now, because they were just taking it back, getting it ordered, and getting the paperwork in.
So they are ordering it right away?
Yes.
Okay, because that's my big concern.
Yes.
I know that, did I read, how long does it take? Months
It depends on which parts it is and where the backup is. So the generators that we ordered today will take 4 to 6 weeks.
Will those help?
Those are just supplemental tools. In the event that I have a problem like this, I can get the water out faster than waiting on everybody else to get it out.
Okay.
I have a question, but I'm going to go, because Sue has a question as well. Danielle, did you have a question? Okay, so I will go third, so I'm going to go with Sue first and then Danielle.
So did any of the water that came into the building, and I know Beach Daily was flooded as well, football fields, all of that, did any of it come through the roof?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Zero infiltration through the roof.
Well, that's one good thing, right?
Yeah.
When the water came. See, everybody remembers that room where the water, I mean, it came in big. Danielle?
Yep, I just wanted to know who's doing the assessment. So who's making sure that whatever is damaged is in fact damaged? Because I know, just out of personal experience, my furnace went out, but it was only the board that had to be replaced, not the entire furnace.
Correct.
Are we making sure that if it's just a part that needs to be replaced, only the part is being replaced? Instead of having to wait for an
Well,
entire
unfortunately,
boiler?
some of them, the whole units were underwater. So, and the other ones they're evaluating it. Again, HVAC was there yesterday. They needed some more things to dry out before they could evaluate the other parts. So they will be back. I know that Scott has been watching them extensively to make sure. We do have work with Gallagher and Midpoint. They're our main people. They're also the ones that did when the car accident hit. So we've been dealing with them regularly throughout the past 2 years that I've been here, or year and a half. They've been on top of things for the most part.
So at some point, do they submit a list to you?
Yes.
And letting you know, so then we can all know
Yes.
what exactly needs to be replaced, what exactly is happening, and how long does that list take, do you know?
They did not go through the rooms today. They were supposed to, but something happened where they did not go through. When we go through the rooms and they provide the list, I will get it. I'm hoping that the list will be updated and provided within the next week or so, but I don't have that timeline for sure.
And at some point, does a structural engineer come in to make sure that, because they're saying the orchestra pit was filled with water, behind the stage was filled with water, are we double checking with Midpoint to make sure that a structural engineer is coming in, making sure that it's sound before we let the students back in? Hopefully, if we can get everything done by September.
Yes, we will make sure that the structural engineer comes in as well.
Yeah. Perfect. I mean, is that, what I'm asking is, can you just make sure that's part of their process?
Yes.
I think it is, but I just want to make sure.
Typically it was. I know when we had the car in the wall, they did come out and the structural engineer came out. I believe that they'll come out as well with this because of the water and the seepage of the sand and just the movement of the earth underneath, and just to make sure.
Yeah, and then just final comments, I just want to say thank you, Scott. Thank you, Penny. I know you guys have been going 4 days on this stuff. I know that it's not easy. So I appreciate it. I'm sure you haven't gotten much sleep in the last few days. So great job, and thanks for all the work and trying to give us as many details as you've been able to give us so far.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So, and Scott, I'm not picking on you, I swear to God.
I know you
But
won't.
I thought we talked about generators before. Didn't we talk about getting generators for the building? Did it just kind of get dropped by the wayfall?
Well, I think I had suggested in an update that we should consider a whole building backup generators. And that was just because we had lost the power one day. But we didn't really pursue very much. And unfortunately, our learning experience on this instance showed us that we needed to do something now.
Okay, well, I'm glad we moved forward with that. And then my only other comment, well, and I'm sure it's not my only other comment, but for right now, will we have them go in with the infrared to check for mold after all of this too?
I know that their mold is on the radar because when we talked today about the heat treatment that comes in with the 115 degrees, that will kill the majority of the mold.
Okay,
And so I know that's on the radar.
okay.
And then they'll test it.
Correct, because we had that conversation today when we were talking about the heat treatment. I did when I called Scott Levine for something else today.
All
So-
right. And I was up here Saturday, as were a lot of the board members, and I just want to commend Scott and his team. I know some people came back from vacation. They did not look the best I've ever seen them because they had been working aggressively in hot weather and had gotten wet, but I just really appreciate it. We've got a great team.
We do.
We do.
I'm gonna ask a question, but I'm gonna let Mo go first, and then I'll ask. I know I have.
I'm going to reiterate what everybody has said. Thank you, guys. Scott, I know you were on vacation.
Correct.
Horrible way to be woken up Saturday morning. Last couple days of vacation, and I can't thank you guys enough. This is something out of everybody's control, as most residents in this city can tell you, in our neighboring cities, but you guys are just champions in my eyes. You and your entire squad, who we can't thank all of them enough. And Penny, I know that you stood tall in place of Dr. Masalam while he's out this week. I just want to thank you guys for that. It's very appreciated by all of us, I know. So, quick question about the extent of the damage to the gym floor. Is this something where you think we're going to have to replace it all, or is this something where we're going to have some spot?
It's too early to tell because that floor is a suspended wood floor.
Correct.
And the water migrated underneath. So now the moisture, the humidity under that is causing the damages. Every day it goes on, then it gets more and more and more. Saturday, when I went in there, I didn't see any damage.
Fine, yeah.
Sunday, we started seeing ridges. Today, there's more ridges. So as time goes on, it will turn into probably a roller coaster.
It's also been harder to tell because the lights have not been on in the gym.
That's a portion
That's
of
the portion of the gym that has not been, the electrical has not been restored. So you're kind of looking in through, with reflections from the two doors. So it's hard to say exactly what the extent of that damage is yet.
Okay. And the other thing, obviously connected to the gym, is the weight room and the wrestling room. And there's some pretty expensive equipment in both of them, especially with both. Is there a lot of damage to the equipment or?
What I assessed from the damage, all we had was water and sand infiltration into the rooms.
Okay.
Because we had a 4-inch curb there for the threshold of the door.
Yeah.
It literally kind of stayed there. However, the water would migrate, but it wasn't raising up on top of all the equipment, exercise equipment. None of the weights really got wet. The plastic feet of the equipment got wet. But other than that, we didn't have the depth of water we had in the rest of the building because there's an elevation there to that room.
Okay. And I think just to piggyback on a question Danielle had about the insurance, is the insurance really going to handle the assessment much more so than you and what you're going to be doing with, some of the items that may just need a board to be switched out, or that's really nothing you're going to be doing, obviously, Scott. Hopefully that, they take that off your plate with everything you got going on.
I'm humbly asking for that to happen. However, the Midwest had told me that they're going to send in some auditors, and at that time, Penny and I had talked that we wanted to have a representative from the school that knows the school, knows every room of the school, and knows exactly what the conditions of everything was. So at that time, I requested Joe Gonzalez to attend for this audit because he knows every single piece of furniture, every inch of that building.
Good.
Yep.
Very good.
And he won't let anything slide.
He'll work hand in hand with the assessment.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
And then just to piggyback on Sue's question around the generators, I know we had heard about it in the past. Do we have a cost analysis on what these generators would cost for just the high school, for example?
Well, the generators that we purchased today, they're portable. They're made for us to take anywhere outside of any area and utilize as fast as possible. The generators I believe you're in reference to is like a whole school generator. Currently, I reached out to Monroe Electric in regards to pricing out a generator for our only critical needs at the high school, which, of course, I've been in correspondence with Mr. Green from IT, figuring out, calculating how much power we're going to need for that. And once we get that established, I will target those primary goals first. And if the board wishes, we can goal the whole school being repowered. I thought critical needs was primary, but if we wanted to power the whole school, we could do that as well.
100% behind the critical needs, obviously, but I think the whole school, if I were to take you back 20 years, how many times would you have used those generators for the entire school had we had them?
I couldn't answer that
Yeah,
question.
he hasn't been here 20.
I mean, anybody.
Well,
in the
I've
last
been-
10 years, 5 years.
Well, I've been here since '92, and this is not the first time that this has happened.
Would you say it's annual or
No, the last
every 5
time-
years?
It was, there was one that was, well, first of all, the reason that some of those boilers came out was because of water damage. I'm gonna say probably 2014 is when there was another damage that was done.
2018 or
They did.
19, we had water in the library.
Right, so there, I mean, it's happened, I'd say, every 5 years, there's been an issue. And I'm not trying to cut you off, Mo, but that was a concern that I had, and that Sue had mentioned, is it's great if we can have these generators, we have to make sure that, and it's not up to me. I mean, that would be something that the engineers that you work with would have to ensure that generators are great, but when you lose power, they have to be able to be powered up, whether, I don't know how they back up that power. I don't know if it's going to be an engine.
It's by natural gas.
Oh, okay, fine.
And there's
As
a
long as
maintenance
that's the case, because I know of a situation right now where there's generators, and sadly, the power supply is underwater, so the generators never kicked on, never kicked
Right.
on. So, but I know that boiler room is flooded now. I'm going to say 4 times that I know of. You had
they
a
were
question,
first.
but I think, okay, Sawa?
So again, thank you. I share everyone's sentiments. And thankfully, I guess it was just the high school and not the other schools. Is there a cap from the insurance company on how much they will cover, dollar figure? And is there any preventative measures we can take for the other schools and/or that one once everything is fixed?
With the cap, there's typically not a cap because it's a natural disaster and it wasn't anything that we could prevent. So if we get to that cap level, it would have to be in the 5 millions or up in the high millions of that aspect. But typically there's not a cap for that insurance claim with our insurance because we are a school district.
And maybe Danielle can answer, but would we also receive any other funds for reimbursement besides from the insurance company?
Yeah, I think you guys can finish questions, and then I'll just take like a few minutes and talk about FEMA reimbursements, damage assessment.
And the second part of your question, I'm sorry.
Preventative measures?
Scott, I don't know that with natural disasters
I
like
mean, I
that,
know it's
that
Mother
we can
Nature, but is there?
that we can really set up for natural disasters besides have the generators and the equipment necessary on hand. Unfortunately, it's one of those things with us being so new to the district, we don't know what we have and what we don't have on hand necessarily, or what we're going to need. So that's the part that previously in a lot of districts, the maintenance department and the needs of this type of thing were put off because funding was below what's necessary to fund a district. So districts would cut and just kind of put off preventative maintenance in districts for a long period of time and not buy those things because there were other things that they thought were more important.
Okay, so Najah and then Sue?
So
then
realistically, the generators, I mean, you're talking critical needs with regards to this, something like this happening, but I mean, a generator in itself, what type of wattage are those?
30,000 plus.
30,000. So for our building, what would one 30,000 watt generator really
We haven't
power?
pursued it yet. We're still in the process of getting.
Oh, no, I'm
that.
talking about the ones that you purchased.
All those are just 8,000 watts,
8,000
so a
watts.
man can lift them and take them anywhere we
Okay.
need to go.
So it's not necessarily to keep our buildings up and,
No.
Power
This-
goes out
No,
and-
these
yeah.
are emergency situation. Hurry up and get things taken care of.
and it would be to power,
Different pumps.
Pumps,
different-
electric,
yeah,
The
saws,
pumps that building, they were
whatever.
looking for them.
the one that was at the building, what, was that somebody's personal generator or was it the district's?
The district has one,
Okay,
but unfortunately, the water mitigation company needed 3.
okay.
And we had 4 areas we needed to get water out. So we were struggling with getting some water out of here, moving it over here.
Right,
And to be brutally blunt, that we could have had, if I had the right tooling, I could have had that pool room evacuated in 3 hours.
because it was taking you how long with just the one?
It would go down 6 inches in an hour
Okay.
with 2 pumps.
I'm glad to see Joe is on, Joe's knows the buildings, Joe doesn't just know the building, Joe truly cares about the building, so I'm glad that Joe is, is the one handling it as well, which helps take something off of your plate. Cleaning and sanitizing, is that gonna be something from our employees are doing, is it an outside company?
They'll do it. Midpoint
Okay.
and the restoration
Okay.
companies will do the sanitizing and all of that.
I want to ask, I just don't want to take us off subject. Because I know train was supposed to start, and I know they can't start, so.
Scott and I talked earlier today.
Okay.
Because of all the massive things that need to be done with the restoration and
Right.
fixing and making sure that the school is up and ready for return in the fall, we've pushed train high school project towards the end of the project. We're hoping that the majority of the restoration can happen at the high school, and then train can come on at the end and do what they need to do.
What are they projecting? How long is that process supposed
They've
to
not given
take?
us timeline yet.
Okay.
And I think part of the reason for the timeline not being there is just the full evaluation hasn't been completed.
Well, I'm saying the process for train to complete their work at the high school.
They were planning to be there all summer long.
That's why I'm asking. So if they were planning on being there all summer long, there's no way they're gonna finish before school starts then. Right?
I don't mean to
how could
interrupt.
they?
Well, I was just gonna say, if it's about a 12-week process, I'm sure they would put the priorities, the high priorities in the very front, depending on where they start.
Well, the
And
reason
then try to do a
Correct.
2-hour shift.
And we had planned it to do the needs or the tasking, so students can be in there during the day and they can work at night.
So they're willing to come in after hours
That was
as
part of
well,
the
so-
demands.
Okay. I just wanna make sure
No,
I
you're
know.
fine. No,
No, it's
I knew where you
okay.
were going with it,
I mean,
so.
with everything changing, I'm also wondering, nothing can change in regards to what they ask of us then either, like, price-wise?
Correct.
Nothing, like, our contract is set, they can't change anything
Correct.
for that, okay.
Sue and then Nadia?
2 questions. Riverside Auditorium, I heard, was damaged. Was there
We had a
damage
slight
there?
amount of water here. It was
Okay.
half an inch of water, and me and David evacuated in about an hour.
Okay, so that
carpet-
was it.
Is that from that doorway right there? I'm sorry, Sue, is that from that doorway?
No,
No.
as I recall, there used to be an old floor drain down there,
Yeah, there is, yeah.
and that's where it's coming from.
Okay. You had another question? Sorry.
Yes, and so the other question is there anything else that we have to think about as far as generators, pumps? I mean, generator in the wintertime so that the pipes don't freeze. Will the whole school one take care of that? Or will these 8,000 watts take care of that?
The whole school one will.
Okay.
However, we haven't been pursuing whole schools yet.
Okay.
Dave Green and myself have been working primarily to keep the internet, card
Sure.
access, and our intrusion fire alarms operational.
Okay,
So that's our objection.
sure, I get it.
Until we want to go big and make it so we don't lose power. But then I believe the kids won't like us very much.
Well,
And then the mayor, or the governor was in town yesterday, and I know they're asking for reports. Has the school reported to the state about the damage?
I think we were gonna let
Oh, I'm
Danielle try
sorry.
to, but I'm gonna wait till the end if you don't mind, because I know there were some other questions. But
Okay,
what she had
sorry.
mentioned, she was gonna give us a little brief rundown.
I will
Okay.
say that we are aware that we need to report and things of that, so we are on top of that aspect of it. We just have to make sure we're getting the correct forms and submitting the correct way.
Okay.
Nadia?
Okay, going back to this generator, why are we waiting? Especially if we're having issues with IT, you can't get a hold of, you guys aren't able to use the internet or anything, correct? Because everything's still down?
No, we have internet today.
Today, until
Yep.
today. So why would we take a chance and continue to wait on something like this? Why wouldn't we get the generator that we need to back up IT and whatever
Availability, number one.
equipment? Okay.
Contractor availability is 2. And probably scheduling would be 3.
And the
Okay.
fourth one is we have to calculate the number of amps that we need
We
for
haven't
the
established
generator.
that yet.
Okay,
And we
but
haven't been able to
wouldn't-
do that yet.
Wouldn't the company that comes out do that? Like, I don't understand. I mean, I know that you guys are busy and all that, but with situations like this, I mean, you're nothing without your IT. You know what I mean? You can't get calls, you can't do your job, they can't communicate with the outside world. Why would we not make that a priority and get that backup generator, Generac, whatever it is, like especially at the high school, so things like this don't happen again? I mean, that's a lot of lost time.
Correct. John Monroe was supposed to come today, but he couldn't make it from Holly. He'll be here sometime tomorrow to work
Okay.
on that.
And
So
I,
is
By
that
that time,
something
by
that
that
we-
time, Dave Green and myself can kind of come up with a tally of what power we need. And I was anticipating just doubling that in case of our future needs. to cover all that critical.
Right, but personally, I mean, with the board sitting here, would like to see, can we agree that to give them the authorization to move on this? Like, we don't want to come back and rehash this out in 2 or 3 months with everything that's going on.
But it may take that long.
That's what I'm saying, but.
No,
we
even
already-
with supply and demand and the fact that most of these companies can't find employees, so I think Scott can speak to that. That's probably, it's gonna take that long at minimum, I would think.
Our
Scott,
first
tell me.
step is going to be to verify the amount of power that we need, and we haven't had the opportunity to do that. And
But once
we,
they
as
do
our,
that-
David and Scott, need to do that and determine which are the critical needs. And so that part, unfortunately, has not been a priority the last 4 days. We are making it a priority over the next couple weeks. So we do have a plan in place to do that. It's just we've not had a chance to get there yet.
And just knowing a little bit, because I know a little bit about this, it's a process. So in order for them to.
I understand the process. I'm not saying it's not a process. What I'm saying is I don't want to come back here in 2 or 3 months, because sometimes I see that we're reinventing the wheel. You know what I mean? We've already said it. Let's get a report back in 2 weeks. This is where we're at with this generator. You should know something. If
Correct,
they're
but
going to tell you 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, I just don't want it to be just forgotten about.
But I think one of the biggest parts, Nadia, is that fact that they have been communicating with, or Scott has been communicating with IT, because it's trying to figure out exactly what it is that needs to have that consistent power in case the power does go out.
What did the company that comes out to sell you the product know that?
Well, no,
We haven't had anybody out.
yeah, they haven't had
Okay.
anybody.
Saturday in the evening.
Scott, if you don't mind, though, let me just. The other part is that they're trying to get the water out of the building. That's the biggest
No, I
priority. is to
understand
get
that.
everything out of the
I
building.
She means
understand.
prior to
So-
all this.
All right.
Well, it was never part of critical needs. Generators was just a discussion. I don't think the board never went through and
No, they
said.
brought it up. I think it's been on the table.
It's-
When we
But-
had the power outage at the high school the last time, it was when we brought it up, and that was, a couple weeks ago? So,
I think what Ms.
yes.
Berry is saying, not to paraphrase, but, let's just make it priority one after this.
It is. And to be brutally honest, Saturday, because we didn't have no power, I had started racking my brain on what can we do. Last night I was up most of the night. I called John Monroe at 5 o'clock this morning and say, hey, give me a circuit that I can pull power from so I can run these things, because I can't rely on the electrical contractors to get my power on. We went out and made 4 cords today to get the servers on. Meanwhile, the electrician didn't show up because he was afraid to touch wet conduit.
So I guess-
we made it happen.
So I guess what I'm hearing, and I'll get to you. So maybe it's important that the administration move as quickly as possible.
Of course.
And getting a contractor or contractors out here, because it's going to be a bid process.
Yes.
They're not going to just come and throw a generator out here. They're going to have to do their specs, find out exactly what it is that needs to be run and how much power needs to go, and then what type of power is going to be used to run those machines in case power does go out. And to spec something out, I'm going to equate to maybe a week or so, maybe even longer than that, for them to go through this process. But I think that's what I'm hearing, and just from one person. I feel the same way. Well, no, but I feel the same way as well, and I don't know where the board stands on it, but I think it's something that needs to be done quickly.
yes.
Najah?
So, I guess I'm gonna just say, I understand what Nadia is saying in the sense of, we all know it's a priority. She just doesn't want the process to keep being delayed in the sense of, gotta come back to the board. We understand the board is asked for advance notice on most things, but something like this is a priority. So we don't want it to be like, oh, well, we discussed it one day, but we never followed through like the last time.
I don't think we need a
Then it
motion.
just,
I don't think we need a motion to, and if everyone is in agreement to that, I think it's, the direction of the administration to move that way. And
You still gotta look at costs.
well, no, that would be, they have, it's gonna
But
be
if
a
it's
bid
gonna go
process.
through a
Yeah, it
bidding
still has to go
process,
through a process.
then-
It's not, they're not just gonna go spend.
I mean, when you look at what you've lost,
No, I understand.
I mean, the cost is.
Yeah, did you?
I just have a quick question
Yeah.
about the portable generators, Scott. The big portable generators that I've seen at buildings that have lost power for days. I'm not too familiar with this, so please forgive me for sounding so basic on this, but I've seen those big portable generators that are dropped off outside buildings when they lose power by certain companies. Is that something that you may be looking into or maybe even
Is that what we're
need?
talking about?
That's a.
No, this is
No, you're
portable that you're
Generator?
renting.
Yeah,
You
you're
just
renting.
rent it.
There's one
Correct.
that's
Those are
stationary.
whole building generators
Correct.
on wheels. And that's ultimately the goal where we should be going as a district. That's the similar size, maybe a little bit smaller.
Correct.
For the size that we would need to power the critical needs at this time.
Would that have been something that would have helped you get the water out quicker?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that something that's available, or do we still need it now? I mean,
I
guess-
don't, to be honest, that size generator to run a pump is too much.
Correct, okay.
So not to mention, you need two men and a truck to move it around. Now we can take this generator, go anywhere we need to go.
Okay.
Yeah, Danielle, but there was another question I had that Mo said, so, Danielle?
Well, I just have a couple of questions, and I do want to get back to Nadia's point, and I'm not trying to harp on it, but I believe that what we're trying to drive home is prior to June 25th, prior to the flood, what work had been done to get the generator? And I just want everyone to understand that, in Scott's own words, had he had the generator, the water could have gotten out sooner. And I'm not pointing fingers, I'm not trying to place blame, but I work in the business of preparedness, and I believe that from now going forward, we need a generator. I know you know that because she said it 5 times, but I do agree. But we need to be prepared for anything. It was the floods on the 25th. It could be a tornado next week. It could be a blackout, tomorrow. It could be anything. So it's not just the floods, and it's not just because of the water. Let's get the generators ordered. Get the guy out to do the specs. Also, one other thing I'd like you to look into or suggestion is they do have generator contractors where you can have a service contract between us and the generator company where they can guarantee you that if there's an emergency in the district and you need a generator out to a building, they can bring the generator, hook it up, have it out to the building for so many days. They'll bring you the diesel with it. I can get you a couple of names, actually. I'll forward them to you that you can look into. So if the cost of the generator is so astronomical and we feel like that money is just way too much for the district to spend, which I don't think it is, because I think it's a good thing to have, you can invest in a contract in one of these companies where they bring the generator. They guarantee having it out within an hour of an emergency, or within 2 hours of an emergency. But I did just want to bring up that point that the questions are not what have we done about a generator since June 25th and 26th, since the flood. What have we done about the generators prior to that? So hopefully by the next meeting, and I don't know if we need a motion for this, or I think it's a general consensus, when is our next official meeting? I'm sorry. Maybe we can get an update on where we are. Sure. Hopefully it'll be ordered by then.
Well,
I don't see them.
Because it goes over the threshold of dollars, they cannot just order a generator.
I mean,
Well, they're gonna bring us.
It
They
can
have
be-
to bring, it has to go through.
let me fix that. It could be
Okay.
spec'd out and quoted by then.
Oh, well, that could be a Friday update.
Yeah,
That could be this
Yep.
Friday update
Yeah.
on where
Great.
it stands.
yeah.
Let me get, Najah was first.
Quickly, really quickly, so obviously the generators have to be purchased through our own funds, right? It's not something that, obviously the insurances are gonna cover that.
Correct.
Can ESSER funding be used towards?
No.
They
I don't know
cannot.
about that. It depends on how you write it out.
Typically, that's not what was in the
I,
aspect of it.
I would call, no, there's ways around it. It's all how you write everything up. I mean, you have a situation where, kids need to be educated, they're all behind, and you need the power backup, so, to have these kids in school. So it all depends on how you write it up.
I would say maybe that might be an item for them to look at.
We can look into that.
I would look at the legalities behind that, because the ESSERs were specific in how those dollars were to be.
Again, it's how you write it up.
They're
Well, I don't know
specific in a very
I don't know if Mother
non-specific
Nature and
kind
ESSERs
of
were
way.
working hand in hand. That's where I would be cautious.
I
about
would be
it, so.
worried about that.
Yeah,
I'm just
I
gonna
would be
voice my
cautious.
opinion right now. I would be very worried about.
Well, we're not
Trying
saying
to
to
write
do
something to
something that
fit
you
it.
can't
Right.
do, we're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
But that's what
see if
ESSER
you
is,
can-
bottom
But-
line. Everything fits what your
it's
district
not.
needs are.
We can look into
But
that.
let's
Yeah.
look, I mean, we can look into, like, so what we've done sometimes is, because you're gonna use it for different uses, maybe a portion of it can be funded
Correct, yeah.
for whatever that use is,
That would
but I would
make-
just be careful.
And and I'm gonna call on you.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to note is that the high school is the main source of all of our internet service, correct? That's
That
why
is
it's
where it is,
number
yes.
one when it comes to having that backup power.
Yes.
Okay. Mo?
I'm all for that. I caution everybody to please, I mean, hindsight's 20/20. Let's just not get too far ahead of ourselves. We're talking about some big time expenses here. I mean, expenses that are really set us back. So, you know, from the IT perspective, I think we're all on board, making sure that's like a priority, especially with what we just went through the last 15 months, you know,
Yeah.
so no questions asked. Everything else, just everybody, we need to slow down. and
No, I
just-
agree. That's
you
why I
know.
was asking for ESSER funding, because it's.
Yeah, no matter what, and again, no matter how we fund it, this is something, you know, in a perfect world, every one of our schools would be covered and we wouldn't have any issues.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, we've got budgeting, so I just,
Hun-
in your defense, you know, hindsight's 20/20. If we all could have seen this 6 months ago, we would have handled things differently, but, you know, I think we should all slow down a little bit, that's all.
I would agree. And again, it's a process when it comes, we cannot just tell administration to go out and buy a generator. If that exceeds a number, they don't have that authorization.
We can set
unless
the whole
we
school
approve it.
district back.
Exactly. So, as well as there's not a legitimate contractor out there that's gonna say, sure, here's a generator. It makes no sense.
Nobody's saying.
No, I understand. So
Nobody's saying for us to go out. What I'm saying is
But if they can
that,
jump on that
I
process.
understand, but you
it's-
have had staff that cannot do and perform their duties, okay? You have had buildings that have been, the building has practically been destroyed. If we would have had the backup generators that we're talking about, we wouldn't have had this much of, extent of a damage. So what I'm saying
That's
is,
not
let's,
accurate.
Yeah, I
not
would
sure.
say that.
well, you would have had power. You would have got
The power would not have supplied it. Power, this generator we're talking about is critical needs.
Yeah.
Card access,
Just card
internet,
access,
and
internet.
phones.
Okay, well,
That would not have supplied power to the.
okay, but what
homes.
I'm trying to say is you have had staff that can't perform their duties.
Correct.
Which is costing us.
Correct.
Okay, so it would be worth it.
Okay.
How much, what would you estimate? Let's just say we were gonna back up the IT in whatever departments.
18 to 20,000.
Okay, is that too much to ask for?
No, again, that's priority one.
Right.
I'm just talking about the other stuff, we need to slow down.
What other stuff?
They're two
Supplying the
different-
entire building, and that's what
Right.
we're
Oh,
hearing.
no,
So
we're
that's
talking
that's where
about-
I was going with
Right.
it, not the IT
Yeah,
piece.
there's two different.
Well, that's why, yeah, it's important to know that those would be the critical at the high school. Those three things, having that access up, that IT
For
up.
the whole district,
Yeah.
the critical IT for
The
the
high
whole
school-
district.
Right,
Correct.
the high school powers everything, and that's where that power needs to be in case of a problem.
So that's.
Yes.
So basically just, that's why when Mo was saying slowing, because that's what I picked up on afterwards, is that Nadia's talking about just the critical needs. I was saying funding coming from pandemic. Obviously, if you can't, you can't, but if it was to be able to go towards that, fine. I know that there was, in another meeting, funding that was going to come from ESSER fundings that I feel like now, I'm glad we didn't go that route, because we could be using that money for other things to help support our kids. And especially with something like this happening, I think it's definitely.
No, I would agree. If it's something that can be investigated by administration, and there's some way to work around it legitimately and legally, that the money can be
course.
used for generators or whatever,
And
then
if
by all
not-
means,
If not, again, the district is definitely in need of
having that supply.
many
Yeah,
things
that-
right now,
yeah.
whether it be due to this.
But no, there's
happening.
no need for a motion or anything like that to be brought to the table. It's just.
We have to do the research.
Yeah, the research
Provide
has to be,
information
yeah,
first.
and then you can just provide the update on a
Correct.
Friday update for us and see where it is that we stand and what the timeline would be and moving forward.
Of course.
So, Sue,
Is the mayor aware that we had damage to the school?
I don't see why he would be.
I just was curious because
Yeah.
he's been talking to the
Yeah.
governor and
Oh,
the senator.
I see.
Yeah, so
It was.
Hang on, let's see. So that was your question?
Yep.
So
Danielle has an answer for that too.
Danielle?
yes, he does.
Okay.
Okay. Najah?
It was suggested yesterday at a meeting that they potentially use the high school for their city council meetings, and I was just like, that's not really, especially right now.
No.
There's not much more room here, is there? The chambers are bigger.
Chambers are small. No, it's small. If the room gets packed, it is. And I understand from the city's perspective. I mean, I've been in those chambers where it's, but anyways, I don't want to get into all that, but I mean, just wanting to use the high school.
I think that
Obviously, right
building is
now, it's
off
not.
limits for the
Yeah.
next, at
2
least,
months.
at
Yeah.
least the next 90 days. Yeah, so that would be a no-go. Okay. Mo?
If I may recommend, maybe Danielle's update will answer a lot of the questions that we may or may not have coming up. If she could supply us with that update now, that would be great. I think she's got a lot of information. I'm really excited to hear what she has to say.
She just put out an update.
Rashida?
Me?
No, Rashida did.
Oh, I just wanted to let you guys know that the damage to whatever buildings in the district, so far, what I know is just what happened at Crestwood, and I don't think anything here in the auditorium is significant. Okay. So there's a public damage assessment form that the county is collecting right now from the 43 communities. Anybody who had damage in their community is to report this. The schools will fall under the city's public damage because they are public schools, so they are government buildings. So we will add our public damage assessment survey to the city's public damage assessment survey. And I have a meeting actually tomorrow with the city, not in this capacity for the district, for the county, but I will be on the call with them and I will let them know that our public damage assessment survey will be added to the cities. And I'll ensure that when it's put into the counties, that the school district's building is definitely put in. There's a form that needs to be filled out. I think Scott and Penny are the best to fill it out, or maybe even the mitigation company. Just detailed information about the damage that's occurred, big equipment items, structure items, any type of infrastructure, so the IT, if we have any IT damage to the servers, anything like that, that can all be included in there. It's not a guarantee that you're gonna get anything back, but it's definitely good to have, and it'll add to the threshold that the county has to meet in order to be eligible for public damage assessment. All this information gets compiled, it goes to the state writes up a letter, and this helps the state write the letter to ask for the presidential declaration. And that's when FEMA comes in with relief dollars and such.
So if I could ask you a question, where would administration obtain that document to get filled out?
I'm
And
going
then-
to email it to Penny
Okay,
tomorrow after I talk to the city, because I want to make sure that everything
actually right
we
here.
have is going to be sent to
Okay.
them.
Is that the
And
public
then-
entity?
What I'll do is I can
Does she have
forward
that one?
Rashida's email.
I'm going to
Our
send it
rep-
to her.
Okay, well, I
With-
can send
with
it,
some
share
other
it,
stuff that
and
I
it'll
have.
show you, what it's all.
and then,
all-
Anij, I have a
Okay.
few questions.
Okay.
And then with that, once that's, so they're just providing a foundation or a baseline. And then the rest of the information would have to come from the adjusters, correct? Or, I'm just trying to figure this out. They just need to know that we had damage,
Nope, they want to know what damage we had.
which would come from both
Which would
parties
come
then.
from, I'm sure between Scott, Penny,
And then the adjusters. Oh,
They'll
okay.
be able to fill
That's gonna be
everything out.
lengthy. That'll be lengthy.
Timeframe
Okay.
filling it out.
There's a deadline right now of getting it back by July 6th, and this is called preliminary public damage. And then when FEMA, hopefully if there's a federal declaration, when FEMA comes in, they will actually come in and get more detailed information.
Okay.
And if we don't know the dollar amount by the 6th, do we just put unknown? Because I know on the public one for the residents, a lot of it was if you don't know that part yet, to
If
put
you don't know
unknown.
that part, put unknown, but I can help you
Okay.
get through that part.
Okay, thank you.
Najat?
So I'm just wondering, does the district not have any of this information regarding what, I mean, with regards to,
We've never, as far as I've been here, I don't
like,
think we've
is there
ever.
no guidance to the schools for, for
Natural
this type of
disasters?
stuff? Yeah, like, I'm just wondering, like,
In the years that I've been here, I'll be honest with you, I've never worked with any administration that's ever
I think we have
filed
the best
anything with the
asset right here
state.
next to us.
That's why we
So-
thank Danielle.
That's why we
That's our
think
best
Danielle,
option.
right?
obviously, I'm not talking about Danielle, I'm just wondering, if Danielle wasn't here, what would we do?
Well,
She is.
I know, but my point,
Nadia has a brother that also works for
my
Homeland
point
Security,
is
so
that there
we
are
can
other
always go to
schools,
him
my
too.
point is, yes, so I'm just wondering, what guidance is offered
I'm
to
sure
a
the
school
districts are
district.
offered the guidance from the state, are they not?
There is some guidance, unfortunately, to go through is hard and far between, and is not very quick and timely to come with a natural disaster. So a lot of times state passes things through MDE, and it comes down well past the time of things being there. A lot of times you really have to be connected to people at the city or the county in order to get that information.
So that's why I'm asking. So basically, if you didn't have people who were familiar with the process, a district would just kind of be left to
We would have
figure it
to,
out.
we would have to figure it
Or-
out, yes. It would be more time consuming to find the process,
Yeah,
correct?
I guess that's kind of troubling, if you ask. I mean, but I'm,
Unfortunately, it's like that for most districts.
It's too bad.
so thanks Danielle, but I wasn't trying to, I wasn't trying to say Danielle wasn't helped. I was just saying, if somebody didn't have that information, what would they do? Good to
Correct.
know. Yeah, okay.
All right. So I guess the big thing is just moving forward, we'll get a Friday update. There'll be some information about where you,
We will update for the rest of this week. You'll still receive a daily update.
Okay.
Until till the heat process starts.
Okay.
Which it'll start on the 2nd, because Scott nor I probably will not go to the building. We have one maintenance person who's going to open up, let them in so that they can track it or monitor the progress, and then come back and close up when they're done monitoring. So to get an update on those 4 days, we can say the heat's going.
the heat's
but
going, yeah. Those are those big tubes that they run in.
They're 3-foot diameter
Yeah.
tubes.
Okay. And they run in real hot. Yeah, I've seen them.
So we can have
Yeah.
progress for the rest of this week, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we won't have any updates.
Okay, all right. And then the buildings are just closed to just maintenance staff at this time?
Correct.
Correct.
How does that affect the computers and stuff,
Um,
and the server and all that?
Well, right now, it's just drying them out,
yeah.
getting the moisture out.
But I mean, usually isn't servers, aren't they in cool rooms? Okay.
You know, that just brings me to an interesting question. When all of that shuts down there, is it backed up someplace else, like here?
Isn't it Risa?
Or does it go to RISA? That, yeah,
Data's back.
okay. So the big thing is having a system in place that would continuously keep it up. Because once you shut down, it's hard on a system when you shut down 5,000 computers. You don't want to do that. Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions, concerns, or comments for administration? All right.
I just want to comment, I echo the sentiments of my colleagues. Thank you to your team. I did see the work that they were doing. I saw them running from the front of the building all the way to the back of the building with that one. It was actually sad to see. I'm not going to lie to you. I could see how passionate they were to get the work done, and I appreciate everything they did, as so do the other board members. Make sure you let them know that we appreciate everything they have done to get this district to where it needs to be through this mess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and mine as well. I was not here, but I did receive the text messages, and so I was very well aware of it. And the same thing. Thank you, and to your staff and Penny, and you know those that are within that division, that department, that ensure that our buildings are kept safe and up and running. And sadly enough, this is an act of Mother Nature, which we have no control over. No one has any control over it, but hopefully we can, or I should say the administration can take the steps needed, and with the support of this board to do what it is that we can do to help prevent or at least slow down something like this in the future. Correct. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So I hear support
Any
from,
public comments?
Public comment?
oh, Mike, is that on here? It's not on here.
Yeah.
It's on there.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. No comments.
No comment.
All right. So with that, I have a motion from Sue,
Support.
support from Nadia, that we adjourn at 6:09. All those in favor signify by stating aye. Anyone want to stay? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.